Welcome to The Disappearing Mind, a unique podcast helping you find clarity and support along your dementia journey. Now, join National Dementia Trainer and Coach Dawn Platt for an all-new episode.
Welcome back to the Disappearing Mind podcast. I am Dawn Platt, your host. Here on the podcast, we explore the realities of dementia, what it looks like, how it affects families, and what we can do about it. Today, we're shedding some light on a lesser known but devastating form of dementia known as Korsakoff dementia. Understanding Korsakoff dementia. If you've never heard of it, you're not alone. Unlike Alzheimer's or Lewy body dementia, it's not something we hear about often in the mainstream conversation. But for those affected, it's just as life-changing. So what is it? Who does it affect? And is there a way to prevent it? And perhaps more importantly, what can we learn from it? Let's dive in. What is Korsakoff dementia? Also called Korsakoff Syndrome. It is a type of brain damage caused by severe deficiency of thiamine, also known as vitamin B1. This vitamin is crucial for brain function, and when the body runs low on it for long periods of time, the neurons in our brain start to die. It's most often associated with chronic alcoholism, but it can also result from severe malnutrition, eating disorders, prolonged vomiting, or medical conditions that affect nutrient absorption, like gastric bypass surgery. Here's something that many people don't realize. Korsakoff dementia doesn't usually come out of nowhere. So it's a chronic condition that develops. It often starts with something called Wernicke encephalopathy, an acute neurological condition that causes confusion, difficulty walking, eye movement problems. And if untreated, it progresses into what we call Korsakoff Syndrome, which is when we see profound memory loss and cognitive decline. What does it look like? One of the most striking things about this type of dementia is how different it looks from the other dementias. I like to talk and break down a lot of dementias. I think the most common type of dementia that we talk about and we understand as individuals is Alzheimer's disease. But I like to talk about the many different types of dementia and how they're different, how they progress, and the longevity and some of the symptoms, because I think it's really important. You know, it's not one size fits all. And there's a lot of confusion in and around just the word Alzheimer's disease and the word dementia. You know, they're not the same. They have symptoms, and dementia is the umbrella term. And under that fall all the different diagnoses of which there are about 120, give or take, types of dementias. But it's really important to understand the difference. The way that Korsakoff looks different from other dementias really is people with Alzheimer's disease or frontal temporal dementia impacts the frontal temporal part of the brain. They might forget who their family members are, lose language abilities, or undergo drastic personality changes. But Korsakoff dementia, the most obvious symptom for this type of dementia is severe short-term memory loss. Very common, the most prevalent symptom that you will see with this type of dementia. So a person with Korsakoff syndrome might seem completely fine in conversation, but forget the discussion just minutes later. This person is prone to confabulation. That's another key symptom. And what this means is the person makes up stories to fill in memory gaps because they have a lot of memory gaps. But it's not in a deceptive way. And that's very important to remember. Symptoms are caused by dementia, not by the person's personality or intent. They're not being overtly deceptive, but they genuinely believe what they're saying, even if it never happened. That's really, really important to remember in this type of dementia. Lack of awareness is common. So unlike in some forms of dementia where a person might experience distress over memory loss, many individuals with Korsakoff dementia don't even realize they have an issue, which makes this very, very different than other types of dementia. Other cognitive abilities might remain intact. It's not like they lose all cognitive abilities. They can carry on conversations. They can understand humor and even recall older memories. This can make it tricky to diagnose because family and friends might assume the person is just being forgetful or distracted. It's really important, we talked about this, to get an accurate diagnosis because this type of dementia is not the same, doesn't require the same treatment, doesn't have the same prognosis, and will not respond to the same kind of care. There are very different approaches to different dementias, so real important. What is common? How common is Korsakoff dementia? It's not as common as Alzheimer's disease, but it's not exactly rare either. Studies suggest that about 1 to 2% of the general population is affected. But among chronic alcohol users, that number skyrockets as high as 12 to 14%. That's a large number. It's one of those conditions that may be underdiagnosed because people don't always recognize what's happening, especially for a time. Someone who drinks heavily and starts having memory problems might just be seen as forgetful or not all there rather than getting a formal diagnosis. And I've seen this happen over and over and over again. And because many individuals lack insight into their own condition, they often don't seek help, and their family doesn't seek help either. After all, they're kind of used to consuming all the alcohol and having confusion just based on being intoxicated. There's some things to think about. While it's most associated with alcohol misuse, we've seen in some cases people with severe eating disorders like anorexia, and we're talking chronic here. We're not talking a few years. We're talking this progresses well over time. It's chronic. Individuals with prolonged vomiting from illness. Their nutritional status is off for a long period of time. Older adults with chronic malnutrition. This is really common even in the USA. People are malnourished. They're not getting the nutrition that they need. And chronically, over years of time, we can see chronic conditions develop. Patients who've had gastric bypass surgery and they're not absorbing nutrients properly. It's really important that these people get the vitamins that they need. And again, this isn't a fear for people who've had gastric bypass, but if the person has lived years and they're not getting the proper nutrition that they need, and nutrition is very important, it impacts the brain, there have been cases where this has been seen. This isn't just an issue of drinking too much, okay? It's a serious public health concern related to nutrition and brain health. And I see it more commonly now than I did 10 years ago. I see many more cases being diagnosed. I see many more cases coming forward of this type of dementia. The big question here is, can Korsakoff dementia be reversed? The answer to that, through the experts, is sometimes, but only if caught really early, very early. So if treatment starts before there is significant brain damage or chronic brain damage, symptoms can improve with high doses of thiamine or vitamin B1. However, if that damage is already done, the condition becomes largely irreversible like other types of dementia that we see. There's no cure. So it depends on how chronic or how long this has been going on and how severe that it has become. So even with treatment, memory loss often remains and a full recovery can be very rare. Good information to have, good information to know. This makes early detection so critical. If you notice someone, especially a loved one, with a history of alcohol misuse, experiencing memory issues, getting them checked for a vitamin B deficiency could be life-changing, could make the difference. One of the toughest realities is that in many cases, Korsakoff dementia is preventable in the earlier stages, unlike Alzheimer's disease, which is influenced by genetics and age. Korsakoff Syndrome largely results from long-term vitamin deficiency. Addressing nutritional health before symptoms appear can make all the difference. This is one of those dementias that we need to really be aware of and understand that nutrition deficiencies do make a difference. It does matter. It really does matter. The human side of Korsakoff dementia, I want to take a moment here to acknowledge something important. And when we talk about Korsakoff dementia, we're often discussing people who have struggled with alcoholism or other health conditions that may have been preventable. But this shouldn't be a conversation about blame. It should be about awareness and compassion, understanding, educating ourselves and others about this condition. Alcoholism is a disease. We know that now. We accept that now. Malnutrition, though, is often a result of deeper health or social issues. And we see this happening quite often, especially in the elderly. So many people who developed this condition never intended for it to happen. It wasn't intentional, and they have started drinking to cope with trauma or stress or pain or situation in their lives. If you have a loved one dealing with this condition, I encourage you to approach it with understanding. It can be frustrating to interact with someone who can't remember things you just told them or who fills in the blanks with made-up stories. But remember, it's not their fault. Their brain is trying to make sense of the world with missing pieces. They have brain damage, essentially. They're not just confabulating or telling lies. In Korsakoff dementia, this is real to them. It's not intentional what they're doing. Really, really important. The best thing that we can do is educate ourselves and our families, encourage proper nutrition and medical care. Proper nutrition is critical. Be patient with their memory gaps. Focus on emotional connection rather than correction. And sometimes just sitting with someone, even if they don't remember what you said 5 minutes ago, is enough. This is one of the many dementias that we're going to talk about. But Korsakoff dementia is a stark reminder of how essential it is to check your brain health, get a physical, how essential proper nutrition, how important it is for our brain health. While it's often tied to alcohol misuse, it's much more common in alcohol misuse. It can affect anyone with a vitamin B1 deficiency. The good news is it's one of the new forms of dementia that we can actually prevent ahead of time. We can look at, we can know about. If you or someone that you love is struggling with alcohol addiction or risk of malnutrition, don't wait, seek help. Early intervention is going to be key. Long-term effects do come as you age. And I want to just say thank you. I'm so glad to educate you about different types of dementia. If you have questions about this dementia or another type of dementia, please reach out to us at thedisappearingmind.com. Please subscribe, share this with someone you know who could benefit. Visit us on all media platforms, on Facebook, on YouTube. Again, visit our website, subscribe, and share. Thank you for joining me today on this episode of The Disappearing Mind. If you found this conversation valuable or you have a suggestion for a future podcast, please reach out and let us know. Again, as always, take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones, and this is Dawn Platt. Make it a memorable day.
Thank you for joining us for the Disappearing Mind podcast. We hope it's helped you find clarity and support along your journey. Be sure to subscribe to never miss an episode, visit our website to suggest future topics, and share the podcast with friends and family.